John Wick Chapter 4. Yes, this franchise has entered its fourth film, guys. Same director, Chad Stahelski, same stars, and a lot of brand new stars. But let's flashback a little bit to the first John Wick. The first John Wick was innovative, it was intense, and it really started a new subgenre called gun fu. It all started because of this first John Wick film. And then the second film came around and it was really a step up from the predecessors. And I really liked that. It expanded on the lore and expanded on the action as well. So, I really liked those two John Wick films, the first two. And then the third film came around, John Wick 3, Parabellum. And I didn't really connect with that film because the story was not deep enough and the action was a little bit repetitive, so it is a little bit monotone, the third film. And then the news of the fourth film in the works came out, and now this is the final product. So how do I feel about it? Well, this in a technical level, this is a major step up. Every technical points from the first film to this fourth film has been increased, has been improved. Every aspect of it, every technical aspect of it, including the cinematography, the fighting style, the gun fu is always improved to this fourth installment. But I had the same problem that I had with the third film, which is too much action and the story was not deep. So this has the same problem as the third film. So I didn't really connect with it personally. But there are a lot of positives surrounding this film, including the performances. John Wick, Keanu Reeves stole. I think by this point, the role of John Wick belongs to him. There's nobody else in the planet who can play John Wick as well as him. So, the performance from John Wick here is really amazing. He throws himself into these action sequences and car chases and a lot of fighting scenes. They are all a bit monotone, but there are still a couple of them that are still entertaining. And then came around a new villain in the movie, played by Bill Skarsgård, named the Marquis. Well, his character is not really that compelling, but his performance was fine, I guess. He's great as the character, but the character itself is not really that compelling. This is one of the most boring villain in the John Wick movies, and I really don't blame the actor. The actor does a great job, but the character and the narrative surrounding the character is not really that important and engaging and compelling to me. Other than the two characters, there are also two new characters here. Donnie Yen plays Kane, a friend that turns into an enemy because the real bad guy, the Marquis, has his daughter. He now plays a blind assassin named Kane. Well, he does a great job, but Donnie Yen playing a blind guy. Maybe if he wasn't blind, it would be really compelling, because he played the same type of characters a couple of times. He played a blind martial artist in Star Wars The Rogue One, and now he did it again in this film. I don't know, maybe his performance is great, his performance is solid, but again, a type of a character really decrease your interest in that character as a person, as character. And this right here, he does a great job, but again, the character was a little bit boring. And there is a wild card named Mr. Nobody, played by Shamir Anderson. He's amazing as an actor, and his character is really breath of fresh air. He's doing something different. And once again, he does a great job portraying the character, but this time around, his character is more of a unique character. So, I really like his performance and his character in this film. So, like I mentioned before, the cinematography is a step up in this film. Every frame, every shot has something that intrigued you, has something unique to that frame. So this movie was shot professionally and perfect, stylistically, you know. So the characters are mostly good. Now let's talk about the story, the premise of this film. This story follows kind of the same with the third movie, you know. John Wick tries to gain his freedom, but he has to go through a lot of fights, a lot of assassins. So it's really not different enough than the third one. If you differentiate it with the third one, there's really no major difference to the narrative. And also, that really drew up my interest in the movie, because the story in the first one and the second one at least was a really important part, but by the third one and the fourth one it was really kind of a backseat. The story is taking a backseat with these films, these two films, and if they decided to make another one, John Wick 5 for example, please make the story front and center, because if you're relying too much on the gun fu, people will be a bit bored with these movies. You have to improve the narrative a little bit more with John Wick 5 and everything related to John Wick. So, the story was not too engaging for me, but it is still not a bad narrative. Now, this movie, 3 hours long, is a bit too slow paced for me. And 3 hours long contains 14 action sequences, and it is a little bit too much for a 3-hour film. This movie could have easily been trimmed to maybe 2 hours and 30 minutes, and it would have been fine. It would have been more enjoyable. So the runtime was a bit too stretched, a bit too long for me. You remember when the first John Wick came around, it was just a little bit under 2 hours, and it suits that film. But the second one and the third one, and now this is the fourth one, the runtime is increasing with action. 14 action sequences within a 3-hour runtime is still a bit too much for me. And the Osaka action sequence go on for too long. They go on for 30 minutes as in opening action sequences, but there's no narrative behind the action sequences. So the Osaka scene, it does not have a purpose in the narrative, overall narrative, because, well, I guess 14 action sequences, you gotta snub it in there in a 3-hour runtime and make the audience happy. But if you look at the story here, it's not really much happening. So with John Wick Chapter 4, there is an ending cliffhanger. Is he dead? The movie only shows you that he succumbs from his injuries and presumably dead on the staircase. But according to box office, this movie has crushed it on the box office. I would doubt that this will be the final John Wick film. If it is the final John Wick film, I would be happy, I would be satisfied, because if you want to make John Wick human, you should end it right here. Not a killing machine. If you want John Wick to be a killing machine, then continue on until John Wick 5 or 6 or infinite numbers of sequels. And if you keep this pattern, the action overshadowing the story, the audience would be bored. But in the end, I still enjoy a couple of parts in this a movie, there are two action sequences that are really powerful and I particularly enjoy. Number one is the shootout on the stairs was really entertaining. It may goes on for too long, but it's still purposely needed for the story to go on. The second one is an overhead shot action sequences in Paris. I think this is a really compelling way to shoot action, and it is powerful. It was shot like a video game action sequence, and I really found it compelling enough, interesting enough. But overall, I do feel a little bit disappointed with this John Wick movie because it is way different than the first one and the second one. This first one and the second one were story heavy, and this one was action heavy. And if this kind of movies is your thing and you got happy with it, I'll be fine. But for me, this movie has a lot of action without a compelling enough narrative. And I'm going to give John Wick a 6.5 out of 10. It's not a bad movie. It's not. It has some redeeming qualities to it. Like I said, the technical level here has been increased. The cinematography, the performances, the characters are all solid. But the action sequence are a little bit overtaking the stage here rather than the story. So, 6.5 out of 10. What do you think about this John Wick film, guys? Did you enjoy it on theaters? Or you're feeling a little bit bored with this John Wick film? And, of course, the final question, is this the best John Wick film? Well, technically yes, but story-wise, nah. I still prefer the first film. The first film and the second film were really story-focused, and I really like that tone. So, 6.5 out of 10. What you think about it? See you on the next video, guys.